Hi teachers, welcome back to the Middle School ENL Standalone curriculum. This is day 4 of week 1 of unit 1, continuing with the idea of building community and the essential question, what makes us who we are? The text that students will engage with today is called My Name Was Hussein, and it is a literary text. The objectives for this lesson are to express ideas clearly with peers, building on the ideas of others, and to use context clues, collaboration, and/or resources to analyze words and phrases. For further guidance on this lesson, please refer to the teacher's guide, which is linked right here. As always, the notes for teachers down here have some more guidance about each specific moment of the lesson. You'll notice right up here, there is a link to the student version of this lesson. So right here, you will see the student version. So this version has speaker's notes removed and a little bit more space for students to write responses. Here you can see the text box is a bit larger for the opening do now routine so they can write out their responses. And right here you'll see a space for them to prepare for discussion in the before the reading. Into the text is the same, so you'll see these hyperlinks here to the recordings and the text. Now after the reading there is space for kiddos to write. And in the closing and connecting, each box has a text box where students can write. So if you would like students to do all of them, there's text boxes for all of them. If there's only certain ones you'd like students to do, you can just delete the ones that you don't want your students to complete before you assign this. The important thing about this closing and connecting is that it's a writing task, so there should be some sort of writing component to finish off the lesson. But that is dependent on the needs of your class. You can find this presentation in the video adapted resources folder for this week in TeachHub. All right, let's get into the moments of the lesson. So we read our objectives. In this lesson, kiddos will look at the text, my name is Hussein, or my name was Hussein, sorry. And they'll start off with this opening do now routine. So the part of the poem today continues with the arrival of an army with tanks and guns, and that causes significant change in Hussein's life. There's no direct mention of violence in the text, but you may want to be mindful of any triggers that this image or those words might have for your students. So you know your students best. If you feel that this image isn't going to do what you want it to do, you can feel free to change it or adjust based on the needs of your class. In the next part of the lesson, this is a discussion activity. So before the reading, they'll do a think, pair, share. The idea of that is linked right here if you'd like to look at that classroom strategies link. So first, they'll look at the last line that they read in the poem in the previous lesson, then one day everything changed. Then they'll pair up with a partner to read and discuss this prompt. Describe a time in your own life when something changed, and how did that change make you feel? And then finally, they'll share their ideas on what might have caused this change in Hussein's life. So the vocabulary.com definitions are linked right here in the hyperlinks. After that, make sure to set the purpose of what they're doing next. So today they're going to continue and conclude the reading of My Name Was Hussein and read how change can and cannot alter identities. Then we get into the text. So the first step is for students to listen to the recording. The text is linked right here. It is also available in the texts and PDFs folder in TeachHub if you would like to assign it directly on Google Classroom. Otherwise, they can pull it from right here. A tool like Markup or Kami might be good if you would like them to write their answers directly on the PDF, which brings us into the next point, to read and respond to the guiding questions that are embedded in the text. So if you scroll down to the bottom of this text, you will see some of the questions. After that, the discussion questions, which are right here. So you can definitely have this discussion whole class. You can give students time on the slide to prepare for discussion by writing their responses ahead of time so they don't feel surprised, so they're more willing and ready to share with prepared information. And lastly, for more information about this specific moment of the lesson, you can look at slide 9 of the teacher's guide, which is once again linked right here. After the text, students will practice using their question words by creating some questions for the author. So the narrator of the poem, those questions are going to be directed at him, at Hussein. So for each series of question words, students will produce questions that begin with these words, and then classmates will respond based on what they've seen in the text. There's a few different options for this. You can split students up into groups to create these questions on their own as groups. They can do this individually. You can make this into a Google form, have students put in their questions, and then do the responses as a whole class. Lots of different options here based on the needs of your classroom, the format that your classroom is taking on, if there's students online, if there's students in person, depending on the size of your class as well. But what students need to remember is that they need to stay as true to the text as possible in their responses. So there might be questions that students are asking that are inferencing questions. So try to get students to stay as close to the text as they can. All right, moving to the closing and connecting of the lesson. There's 4 different activities here. The extend learning is an activity where they look at more of the history of Bulgaria, kind of learn some more facts about where Hussein is from to build some context, connect to the text. This could be a great discussion activity as well. Do you have different nicknames at home that your family likes to use, and how did you get those nicknames? A writing here to rewrite line 73 to 75 from the perspective of Hussein's father. And then a check for understanding. What can you infer about how Hussein feels about being given a new name, and what clues in the poem help you? So lots of different options here. Feel free to use one or more activities with your class. And that sums up lesson 1.4. Best of luck rolling this out to your students.